And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another special address that promises to shed light and depth on today's central theme. May I kindly invite your attention to the screen for a brief introductory video of the chairman of the Nation Building International Institute.
Professor Dr. Kriengsak Chareonwongsak graduated with first-class honours and obtained a PhD in economics at Monash University, Australia. He obtained a Master of Public Administration from Harvard University, USA, Master degree from Judge Business School, Cambridge University in United Kingdom, as well as D.Phil, Doctor of Philosophy and Management, and postdoctoral studies in Public Policy and Management at the University of Oxford in UK. He also graduated from the National Defence College of Thailand. He served in a number of significant positions in Thailand and overseas, including an advisor to the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, the President of the National Assembly of Thailand, and many key ministers in various governments. He was a member of the Parliament and elected to be the Vice Chairman of the Standing Committee on Economic Development. He was elected and served as the Chairman of Education, Religion, Arts and Culture Commission, and Vice Chairman of Economic, Commerce and Industry Commission of the National Economic and Social Advisory Council of Thailand. He was also active on the National Committee for International Economic Policy, a national committee comprising economic ministers and prominent economists. He was an eminent member of the National Education Council of Thailand and a committee of the National Committee for Education, Science and Culture for UNESCO. He was elected to be member of the Board of Directors of the Harvard Kennedy School Alumni Association, Chairman of the Social Science Association of Thailand, and President of the Thai Australian Association under the royal patronage of His Royal Highness Crown Prince Maha Vajiralongkorn. In business, he is currently a Chairman of the Risk Management Committee of Krung Thai AXA Life Insurance Public Company Limited, Thailand. He was also the Chairman of ASTI Holdings, a Singapore's publicly listed company. He has written over 7,000 articles, commentaries, and academic papers to address critical development issues of Thailand and the world. He is the author of more than 200 books and has presented over 500 academic papers at international conferences. He has given over 2,200 lectures in hundreds of universities and conferences in 70 countries. A selection of the current positions of Professor Dr. Kriengsak, the Senior Fellow at Harvard University and a Fellow at University of Oxford, Senior Fellow South Asia Foresight Network, SAFN's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI Centre in Washington, D.C., Professor of Management and Economics at University Utara, Malaysia, and the Academic Dean of the Thailand Centre of the University of London School of Economics and Political Science, EMFSS program. Professor Dr. Kriengsak is President of the Institute of Future Studies for Development, Chairman of Advisors to the Senator Dr. Amornsak Kitananan, Honorary Advisor to the Senate Committee on Education, Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, Honorary Advisor to the Senate Committee on Religion, Morality, Ethics, Arts and Culture, Advisory Committee of the Regional Resource Centre for Asia and the Pacific at AIT, and Chairman of the Nation Building International Institute.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Professor Dr. Kriengsak Chareonwongsak, Chairman of Nation Building International Institute.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's my delight once again to give a special address on our international conference on peace, development, and nation building on the third day of our International Convention of Nation Building, Wellness and Peace for 2026. For those of you who travel all from around the world, across the globe, to be with us, we are truly honored. And those of you online, which is 3,000 in number from 70 countries, and those who are on site, about 500 in various auditoriums in this premise, we are grateful for your attendance and your participation. At the outset of this international convention from day 1 and day 2, and today the final day 3, I have set upon a task for our own institute to do a conference which is not as usual. That means It's not just be a festival of ideas that happens and we have to do it ritually every year. But it meant to be a stable effort annually to send out key messages around the world so that the world hear what is important of the day. And this year, the theme of blurred morality is a word I have chosen carefully to think what are the predicaments of this world at the subliminal foundational level. Why the world are in such trouble? And I think the deeper issue is very philosophical in nature, which is the issue of blurred morality, which I thought when I created the word or coined the word, no one else have used it. But eventually I found there's a few guys, maybe one more, who use the word blurred morality also. So I'm so delighted to know that I have comrades around the world who think likewise, that the issue is blurred morality, ambiguity of morality. Why are we talking about blurred morality? Let me mention at the outset, Jason Biggs, American film and television actor, said, I have yet to meet a person in my life who doesn't have some moral ambiguity. How true. I have walked this life through the corridors of experiences, traveled the globe in almost every single country in the world. I've been everywhere, every sub-district in Thailand, my own nation. Obviously, I have lived overseas in various seasons of my life, mostly in the West, in America, in 3 cities, in California, Stanford University, in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, and also the East Coast at Harvard University, Boston Metropolitan. What have I observed the Western superpower of the world in this last century, the American century? I also live in Australia, in Melbourne City, situated in 2 greatest universities of the country, Monash University, the name of the celebrated leader of Australia, and Melbourne University. What did I observe in that kind of setting? And when I look at the British world, which I also live in 2 cities, at Cambridge and Oxford, they are the high ivory tower of influential intellectual effort in changing the world. My observation is that even at that highest intellectual vicinities, ambiguities happen. And whenever the moral ambiguity become unclear, you have separate directions for people who are under their spheres of influence. Therefore, in my opinion, people observe just the phenomena that happen today, where we all sit there watching with a sense of helplessness, sometimes a sense of feeling that the problem is there, that we can never be solved. Look at the page of the 6,000 years history. There's sporadically absence of war once in a while, but usually there's war somewhere every single day in the last 6,000 years, big or small. And the greatest threat of peace today, yet we have to recognize war loom large in our mind. Terrorism of the different modern kind is challenging. Economic instability that I have noticed has gone through decades of severity that I think there could be a possibility of meltdown economically in the world like we never seen in the last 100 years. there is a possibility coming. Geopolitical rivalry that is witnessing in the last, mainly, intensely, the last decade. Hegemony of one superpower is no longer the global order. Now we see the multipolar world, which is, to be even more exact, the bipolar world, led by the two superpowers with competing resource of every kind that is almost equaled. And therefore, the world sits in a very dangerous place, which in my own view and perspective, conflicts at the global scale may eventually lead us to global World War III if we're not careful. And that's why this message today, I hope the superpower leaders of the world kindly take time to listen. We are in trouble today. Beneath many of these visible and sometimes not so visible crises, a deeper and less discussed challenges are the issue of how do we live together in a world where we don't agree on morality, what is right and wrong. And as I said from the outset, day one, it's impossible to make us have consensus in every nuance and facets of details of morality. The difference is there, and we have to respect. But how do we live together despite these differences and able to forge a world which is able to live together with security, safety, and a world of great harmonization in social cohesion? My feeling is clear. When you look at World and European Values Survey, which have done great service since 1999 till today, they survey individuals around the world in many countries that reveal massive polarization are driven by cultural and moral issues. Therefore, the soft issue of culture and morality actually is even more pertinent than the hard issue of military might. We have seen many symptoms of the fragmentation in the world in issues that touch us day by day and escape our attention through the media. Today, the debate on abortion, divorce, sexual preference, prostitution, euthanasia, bribery, corruption, all these are surfacing day by day, but no one able to navigate a way out of all this mess that we don't know how to agree on perspective, which is classical and now more postmodern. The problem is not absence of morality, but is existing of competing moralities, may I say, moral modalities that are different. We have no shared moral foundation any longer like we used to assume in centuries past. And therefore, society who evolve through moral foundation of the similar kind struggle now to sustain and maintain trust and peace. My feeling is that blurred morality not only affect nation building on day one, which I elaborate in my special address, not only affect wellness of humankind, which I elaborated yesterday, but it affects peace in the world too. At 4 levels: individual level, communal level, and national level, including international, global level. Let me enunciate clearer what I mean by individual level. When we cannot deal with the issue of blurred morality with consensus and some kind of a willingness to coexist with differences, sometimes it creates internally an internal war inside ourselves, internal conflict, and destruction of inner peace. Why do I say so? Moral disengagement and denial of responsibility. Therefore, people start justifying harmful acts without guilt. In the name of moral justification, it serves a good cause. Basically, the end justifies the means. We also see diffusion of responsibility, that everyone does it, so why not? We can do it too. Dehumanization, looking at human beings as if they're just things, not people. They deserve no empathy. All these rascals and all these people that are no longer people who look upon as human beings with dignity. The result is harm becomes morally acceptable. Cognitive dissonance and moral injury is created by conflicting values. And sometimes the debate unended internally cause inner tension. This is why I have noticed very carefully many of my Western friends around the world in academic highest institutions start looking for mindfulness. In my Buddhist tradition, they're thinking how to seek peace internally when around them, outwardly, there's no peace. The inner tension is so great that stress level went up so high, and pills are being used to calm the nerve through Western products that try to cope with the symptoms, but the inner root are never dealt with in inner tension. That's why you can see pharmaceutical bill went up so high in the European worlds and also the American worlds, where they dispense drugs to try to calm the nerves when they war internally inside their own heart. And the reasons that could come is from the violation of moral beliefs. They live with guilt, and moral injury is a consequence. The result in human internal psyche is guilt, shame, alienation, and loss of inner peace. And obviously, the outward action, the paralysis of action, moral ambiguity obscures right and wrong. And therefore, the result, the people become no longer proactive in their presupposition or disposition, but they're more reactive and prone to knee-jerk emotional reaction that cause conflict in our interpersonal relationship. This is at the individual level, but at the community level, my suggestion is that collapse of norms and institutional distrust, which I allude to in my day one, erosion of social capital. My Harvard colleagues, who are much older than me, Robert Putnam, put it so succinctly well, the term social capital, which may I transliterate it into a bigger pregnant concept, that is the concept that due to trust factors diminishing, social capital become also declining. Trust is a foundation, in my opinion, of cooperation. No one able to look through all the information fully and take decision is impossible. Trust, therefore, is required for any relationship. And therefore, when trust factors go down, people treat one another and retreat into ghetto mentality of group that are like-minded and avoid differing views and living their mental ghetto, may I call it this way. And this is what's happening today. We agree to disagree. We agree to live in our compartmentalization of our ghettoization, if I can say it that way. Result is the cooperations during what level of community, how deep, how shallow, how wide, how narrow, are so weakened. And the social bonds erosion is there because the trust factor diminished. If you remember on day one, I mentioned, I have never observed the trust in governments around the world at the lowest ebb I ever seen in my entire life. Today, everyone look at governments and didn't know what to do with them because they have disappointed all the citizenry. Apart from social capital erosion at the highest and to the more foundational level, anomie, the shared norms and social cohesion weaken. Individuals feel disconnected, disenfranchised, directionless, and marginalized. Result is social fragmentation and deviant behaviors increasing everywhere. I don't know, have you witnessed the spraying, shooting of people in schools in America or in many other places where kids of young age are feeling such psychic turbulence internally and therefore express out in the community of friends in schools that they don't know or they do know personally. The third thing is legal cynicism, a reliance on violence. You know, we are moving back to the cowboy world, where when you want to make up for the conflicts, you do the duel. But the civilized world based on rule of law have a better civilized way of handling conflicts. But when the legal institution become weakened and people don't trust, lose faith in laws, institutions, and fair process, they are co-opted into working by themselves. If you don't trust the authority in charge, when the authority decline, the recognition of justice decline, cynicism happen. And then we do self-help practice and justice that we take into our own hands. And therefore, violence emerged, not only the faraway African countries that I have seen often, but also in the near land, in where we are. And not only the near land where we are, the so-called higher developed countries like the West, they see it's the same thing. When you have conflicts, you move on to the turf of violence and no longer discuss decently. Then the fourth thing is exclusion of the others. People seek certainty and therefore they hide in the comfort zone of rigidity of identities. Whether it's our tribe, our religion, our ethnicity, name it, whatever grouping you like to see. Today there is a generational war hiding behind the similar generation. They're saying that we have war across generation because the old people are so outdated, they're dinosaurs. And the new generation feeling like we are the enlightened one. At the same time, the old people look at the young people and look at them and say, they are the outcasts who have absolutely no acceptable social behavior. They are totally ultra-independent until they have no sense of respect for the seniority of the old, who are more experiential and have accumulated a lot more wisdom to all these petty little young people. My goodness, what I'm saying is that ask them mentality, which we relies upon to exist because there is community lack of peace. Differences are being a case to be threatened rather than allowing the beauty of diversity so that we can enrich one another for the cohesion of harmonization of what is good in the diverse views. Therefore, division is there. Hostility deepen. Move further to the country level. I noticed the political polarization and truth subversion. Look at it today. In day 1 and day 2, we talk about corruption are normalized. Like it's something you have to take it as given. It's no longer something shameful. Corruption becomes socially acceptable. All my business friends say that if you want to do business with any government machinery, there is an accepted fact that you need to do the under-table dealing. Otherwise, you will never be selected. This is a problem of social acceptability until they're pacified. The public resources are diverted for private gain. Trust in government, therefore, declines. I mentioned something which I never mentioned before, that the office at the highest level of the government, be prime minister or ministers who used to be revered, respected, accorded honors, are diminishing very fast. Looking at them and say, well, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can also be prime minister if you collect enough votes, whatever deviant means you could do. Honors that must be there in society is no longer there, but honors required to govern peacefully and acceptably. Political disputes sometimes will continue. Erosion of civic duty because the citizen instead of become real citizen who are taking up civic duties, they lose the motivation. They just exist and coexist with the system, try to walk through life till the end so that they can survive. They just do the little bit being drummed upon them as if it's a national duty to go to vote and not be absentee voters. Pay your taxes if you cannot avoid. Or obey some obvious laws. If you not recognizing it, you will be punished. Apathy, resistance become normalized. The result is social unrest, not on the street alone, sometimes more so on the social media. And non-compliance is everywhere. Politicization of justice today. Laws are applied selectively in many places based on power or affiliation. If you side on the wrong side, you got punished. You got on the wrong side, you got rewarded. You become exceptional. And you become someone that able to find more justice and more equality. Institutions lose legitimacy and trust. Political disputes are no longer war without blood in parliament, war in words, but war in street war zone in many countries. Bloodshed, which reserved for real war. Now you have bloodshed on the street in many countries. And that can come to that level if not careful. Reality crisis and affective polarization. Facts no longer have the aura of authority like it used to be. Because now we don't know what is fake news, what is fake information, what is disinformation, what is misinformation. It's really hard to recognize what is real information in a world where we're able to access all information very quickly and no screening process. Polarization and hostility therefore intensify. The result, consensus collapse and compromise collapse. We stood our ground firmly. Look at the global, the fourth level. individual level, community level, national level, now global level, geopolitical hypocrisy and international conflict, which you observe. May I use the word selective hypocrisy? At the international level, international rules are applied selectively when it's convenient and for your own self-serving benefit. Nations cast themselves as heroes and rivals as villains. We have never stooped so low. The first country I attend my educational institution overseas is my beloved USA. At 16 years old, I was there. I have never seen US at the lowest level like I seen today. Unbelievable that we can go that low. And unable to stood the ground, like the Nation Building Institute have always said, the key is, what is goodness? And I clearly announced the definition in the very brief, to the point. Others first. When the proud American president, pardon me, Mr. Trump, Emperor Trump, pardon me, you said America first. And this is a problem. If everybody say their own country first, we don't think of the entire world, big problem going to emerge philosophically from your own stipulation. I don't know whether I'm allowed to return back to Harvard after saying this, because Emperor Trump may say no. But let me say this with humbleness. Please listen. International rules cannot be applied selectively. You have to be consistent to be respected. The last 100 years is the American century who led the world. It should be leading the world for good and not in hypocrisy. And when we're doing the way which is totally unclear immorality, international order collapse. We spent so many years building up the new international order in economics, in trade, in the legal order, in the social order, in every order in the world. And we even create the UN to try to help. And yesterday, my senior friend from the UN was here at my lunch table. The UN become Mickey Mouse because they have no real role any longer. I used to aspire one time in my life when I was much younger to either be the Prime Minister of Thailand or to go to be Secretary General of the UN to try to help. I say, wow, if I knew that it's going to come this far, what's the point being Prime Minister when nothing can be done? What's the point being the Secretary General of the UN when no one listens and the global order is collapsing? Every nations are equal, but some nations are more equal than others, like the animal farm mentioning already. Today, hypocrisy has to be turned around, back to decency. We have to understand why the world is in trouble. We start and the decline continue steadfastly. The promise keepers are no longer honored, they're mocked. Agreement lose credibility as commitments become situational. I have observed at the individual level and at the international level, at the national level, at the community level, everybody don't keep their promise anymore. Their word doesn't mean anything. You say something and you don't do it, and you don't keep your promise. This is problem of commitment, and therefore diplomacies turn around to use coercion and hard power. Might is right. Armed races is the name of the game. Whoever spends more GDP on arms. Geopolitical instability surged to the highest. Therefore, violence, legal violence and illegal violence, every kind of violence, now the state justify its own action in the name of security. It's weakened international law, humanitarian norms, and now whoever has bigger muscle is right. Might is right. And you apply that into the family, the husband is always bigger muscle than the wife. Therefore, the wife will always be subjugated. If you don't agree, let me show you what might is right. If you're in the community, you have people who are stronger and those who are weaker. If might is right, then those who are able to have the weaponries of every kind that seem to be on top can shout the loudest and say, we are right and you are wrong. At the national level, that's the same happen. Who has a financial might seems to win in economic game, political game. And at the international level, whoever have enough money, you control the world. I don't think we should continue to condone might is right or might makes right. But we must come back to the decency of the rule of law, and the rule of law must be honorable, that is being established with reasonableness. Then another very big problem is the global common goods. We fail miserably to think of the entire global commons. We become myopically short-term in our national interests, and the language is so patriotic, nationalistic, beyond the level of acceptability. When you think those who are not in your border, in your ethnicity, doesn't matter anymore. When we are brothers, we are fraternals. How could we think of national interests without thinking of the global interests and concern for others as well? Now, personal, short-term, parochial interests override collective responsibility, collapsing the cooperation, the collaboration even further, that is collapsing everywhere. On the little issue that we can really solve it if we work together, but the entire world can't even agree on making sure that the temperature don't rise above the acceptability and the copability of the capacity of this ecosystem of the world. If everyone adhere to the rule, we're still not doing well. Let alone none will adhere to the rule. The climate change is there on us, and the world is going to be in trouble in the next 30, 40, 50 years. And the new generation will yell out loud and say, this generation is terrible. They don't take any action. I hope from the Compass Campus, where we are announcing to the world, please think about it. How can we collaborate for the global commons? Climate change, healthcare, where people are looked upon not as statistics, but they mean something. Sustainability that we need to uphold. Global crises become increasingly unsolvable. And that is very bad for all the mathematical-minded people who would like to solve mathematical solutions. And today it's so complex that we just throw our hands up and say, impossible to solve. Then what is my suggestion today in the light of the last 2 days? If you remember the take-home messages from the first day, the second day, and the third day today, may I converge in the concept of agora. I'm borrowing an old word 2,500 years ago to refresh the concept into a new nuance. I call agora covenant, which I create my own term. There must be a covenant of agora. What is an agora? I told you I'm a good friend with Aristotle, Socrates and Plato, we are only 2,500 years apart, but we are very good friends because I talk to them often. Therefore, I become very good friends. In the old ancient Greek day, the school of Athens, painted in this picture by Raphael, capturing the spirit of ancient agora of Athens 2,500 years ago, is a center of dialogue and deliberation. Actually, the sages of ancient Greek have the right idea. It is actually a physical space. It's a space where people can assemble. Assembly hall, assembly place, public square, where more than a marketplace, is a civic place, where citizens, leaders, merchants, philosophers exchange ideas and debated over matters of common concern, not individual concern, common concern, diverse kind of people able to dialogue on issues that have difference. Thinker like Socrates, which some of you have noticed that this room I named Gandhi. The next room I call Socrates. Every room has a name here, which purposely mentioned to get people who enter the room to think about those who have contributed in the annal of world history. I like Socrates. I like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, because they engage people in discussion about truth, justice, and the good life. Despite different beliefs, interests, participants share a common commitment to listen civically, to reason together, to engage and take trouble listening, persuade one another, and seeking solution together in a civilized manner. That's why the concept of agora is borrowed for the first time since ancient Greek day today. I think Socrates, Plato, Aristotle must be delighted that I mentioned them today. The agora concept of the Athens day now is being revived at Compass campus and sent out to the world today that the way to go is agora covenant, which we need not just a public space, because obviously we are prisoner of space. None of us can escape being prisoner of space. But I want to change it to this concept of sphere. Agora sphere, not agora space, because this sphere can travel in all the spaces, every corners of the world today, including the online space, digital space, that we could have this ongoing discussion. Why do I say we need to turn from agora of old, which is a space, to agora of new today, announcing for the first time in the world, become a sphere. A sphere where we debate, we discuss, we dialogue. We don't have to have complete agreement, but we need to converge after decent discussion to find some room of mutual agreement to go forward together, to share the sphere and space where, if we can, to find that this agreement can be managed without violence. In a world of moral diversity and blurred morality, the challenge is not agreement, which I said from day one, impossible to make every nitty-gritty, minute details of agreement. But it has to find constructive engagement, to find converged agreement to go forward together. The world needs new agora, a sphere of civic place. How do we create that? I said my proposal is clear. Agora covenant built upon the last 2 days. If you carefully listen to my special address day 1, I mentioned many things. 1, I say there's a difference between personal ethics and social ethics. When we go to make sure that everyone have the same personal ethics with us, it's not going to be able to be achievable. We all think differently. When I say personal, I mean clearly. that if the issue causes self-harm, we allow them the privilege of liberty. But if it causes social harm, when it causes other people harm, that's how the neo-social contract, which again I created this concept long years ago, built upon the three great philosophers of old, Thomas Hobbes, Jacques Rousseau, and John Locke. A couple of them come from Oxford too, so they are pretty good. They thought about social contract. I thought about the neo-social contract. How do we build new social contract in the world? And my suggestion, for example, let's allow the liberty of personal ethics when we differ, but agree on the social ethics which affect other people. And that would make us have a way to go forward. Yesterday, I also mentioned another concept of filtering process, or what is personally each one to think through every issue through the three lenses of three filterings. Is it good? Is it beautiful? And is it truthful? And my definition is very right to the point philosophically. What is good is when you think of yourself and others and you say others first. If you pardon my philosophical nature, the whole universe is comprised of two elements, you and the rest of the universe. Therefore, the issue of the self, the ego, has to be addressed. What is good? Good is to think beyond yourself, to think of others first. What is beautiful? Well, that's very important. And I even define in my book, when you are beautiful, you have the compositionality, you have the integrationality, and the proportionality. Philosophically, again, is a new way to define what is beauty. Whether it's beauty on the face of a woman, beauty in the scene, that you look at the view near the beach, or beauty in the heart of individual. Beauty of every kind must have the same definition. What is a beautiful government? What is a beautiful social contract? I say lens number 2 is beauty. Lens number 3 is truth. And I have a way to mention what is truth and how do we find them. Unfortunately, you didn't come early enough. The prologue of this morning meeting, they were listening to me expounding the concept of truth to all the monks. I talk about what is truth. And that is very important. So that's a concept that's been expounded the last few days, for example. But today I'm proposing Agora covenant cannot be done without understanding the world of difference when we have to distinguish and live with it. Allowance of generosity or personal ethics, may differ, but converge on the social ethics. Agora covenant cannot happen without looking at the 3 filters of personal screening internally. What is good, beautiful, and truthful. But in our interaction, whether it's small group or large group, whether the unit in the communal level is a family setting or the 2-person where we are together or the bigger organization or the bigger nation or the bigger world, we need to think in terms of what is true desirous liberty, what is true desirous equality, or what is true desirous fraternity. And when we filter through that 3 lenses again, balancedly, I think we will come up to some kind of a solution to live together properly. Therefore, the Agora concept that I'm proposing is shared commitment for peaceful coexistence of world diversity where people hold different beliefs, values, identities, interests, and vision of what is right. We must ground it in moral capacity necessary for people to live together despite their differences. Talking generously, being inclusive, doesn't mean we cannot be clear in our mind of exclusivity of what is right and wrong. We still reserve the right to have our personal understanding of what's right and wrong. At the same time, the generosity to allow those who differ to be able to debate, to dialogue, to persuade, not to coerce the agreement. By the way, the state is designed with sovereign power. And by definition of my own, sovereignty means coercive way to tell you if you live within one state, just do what this state say is you need to do. Power is coercive, but influence is free-willed. Let me say how to create a world of morality, and the solution I'm proposing is the new Agora. I call Agora Covenant in the spheres. Identify 4 minimum moral capacity necessary for peaceful coexistence: moral literacy, moral accountability, moral dialogue, and moral cooperation. If you lack moral literacy, you will not be able to understand one another, cause misunderstanding, and the risk is that you demonize the other people who are different from you. You don't have the literacy. Moral accountability, if you don't own it and feel like I have to be accountable, and all of us have to be accountable, we will solve the problem of responsibility. We become irresponsible and we start being manipulating. If we don't have moral dialogue, we stop engaging and we become polarized and we have entrenched conflict as a result. If we stop having moral cooperation, we don't act together anymore, we fragmented and we have social paralysis. So my suggestion is clear. Peaceful coexistence is to live together without violence and without social breakdown. The 4 capacities move in sequential pathway. You move from moral literacy to accountability, to dialogue, and to cooperation. Not arbitrary. It translates the core condition of ancient Agora into a contemporary peace-building model. The minimum set of moral capacities required for sustaining peace in morally diverse societies is greater. Moral diversity should bring us to greater need for these capacities so that we can engage real capacity building for peace. I used to be called upon by the UN or some European countries to help some countries who are in war and problem. I don't want to name some countries. And they said, we are in to help build capacity. I said, what capacity are you building? Capacity means what? How do you solve some of these problems in those countries? My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, let me be clearer in the 4 items. 1, literacy, moral literacy. Based on hate moral foundation theories I like, he talks some sensible thing about people possess moral foundation, but prioritize them differently. So we have to look at the foundation. You know, when you look at a building, you don't look at what already built. You have to look at the foundation underneath. Moral foundation is very important. Otherwise, conflict arisen from the lack of moral foundation and not understanding one another, different framework of morality. People interpret right and wrong through different lenses. Therefore, literacy education has to be there not as a finished product and jam down the throat of the young people or of the citizen, but to make them think and able to understand moral literacy so that they have conviction. It's not to weaken the conviction or to try to loosen up so that you're able to live together. You still can maintain your moral conviction despite differences. but strengthen the understanding of different moral perspectives, which you may disagree. Moral literacy doesn't mean moral relativism. It does not claim that all values are equally valid. Impossible for any of us to be thinking that every perspective, no matter how diverse, are equally valid. We may reserve the right to think that our perspective may have some good rationale for believing that we are more valid. But we have the generosity to try to understand those who disagree with us and seek to persuade one another out of goodwill, not out of coercion. The outcome is clear: to understand before we judge others, to reduce the misunderstanding before we become polarized. Moral literacy at a practical level can be promoted, for example, moral self-awareness, critical thinking, bias recognition. Maybe at the community level, we need to have interfaith programs. You see at the Nation Building Institute, you see monks are here. Imam, I don't know what is the clerics of the Islamic tradition are here. And their Catholic fathers are sitting right here today. See, look at his collar, you can tell. We sit comfortably together in Nation Building Institute, and they become brothers. Interfaith relationship. Cross-cultural engagement. Here, we seek to deal with every single different kind of culture, civilization, nationalities. You may not realize just a few days ago before the conference, I had the Israeli here, 40 of them sitting in this Socrates room, discussing how we can help working together with Israel. Next week, by the way, after you left Thailand, the Iran going to be here too, in this very place. That showed the spirit of trying to work together in different ethnicity, religion, culture. We are broad-minded enough to accommodate all. And I think with the right kind of mediation, something can happen positively. I have espoused the concept I mentioned to you, 10 universal dharmas principles. Misspelling, by the way. From 1,000 pages of my 3 volumes of Engaging Nation Building with Dharma. Dharma is the abstraction of the divine, which is more concrete. Basically, whether you have a very nebulous, not concrete divinity, or you have the more abstract concept of Dharma, basically is the same pivot. What I'm trying to say is that I have tried to sift through all the different religion, spirituality, and to find 10 key common things that the whole world agree upon. And if we seek that converged agreement, I think we could work together. And those 10 key universal dharmas have been espoused in that 1,000 pages, 3 volumes book, which I don't want to make you read, but I know you will read. Moral reasoning, curriculum in school. Not moral indoctrination, but moral reasoning in schools and academic institutions. Moral literacy lab, anti-disinformation education so that they are wiser to screen and choose. The global strengthening of international cooperation to advance global citizenship education. That's what we try to do annually here, to try to be generous and helpful to our global brothers around the world. Nation Building International Institute is not just thinking for Thailand. We are thinking to make Thailand a good example, hopefully, so that the rest of the world also benefits. We are hoping to be advancing the global agenda of peace. Donald Trump would like to have the Nobel Prize of Peace, which I admire him for his effort and desire to receive the prize. But I hope some of you sitting here will receive the real Nobel Prize of Peace eventually, because you're really doing the real job. Not just a one-point action, but a lifelong action of trying to create world peace. What can you do? Create Agora Covenant by having moral literacy among all the citizens. Moral accountability is number 2. To honor Bandula idea of moral disengagement, people can justify harmful action without feeling responsible. So can we build upon some of the groundbreaking work of this theory? Harm is often excused in the name of higher cause, group loyalty, or conformity. When accountability declines, trust declines, corruption rises, institutions lose legitimacy. My suggestion is moral accountability systems and frameworks. Focus not just on intention, but also on responsibility for consequences. To build a culture where individual organizations and governments are accountable for their action. The outcome to create society in which responsibility cannot easily be outsourced, denied or manipulated, but strengthening trust and institutional legitimacy. Moral accountability at the individual level is, why don't we practice and personal reflection journals? You know, everyone who near me, particularly the young people, I told them before you go to bed, you close your eyes, you think throughout the whole day, what did you learn? So that you will learn to be a better person tomorrow. So that today you're better than yesterday, and tomorrow you're better than today. If we have that candid personal reflection every day, what would happen to us at the individual level? At the community level, can we do restorative justice circles, community accountability board, community at any level, large or small? National level, nation building credit score system, which we create here at the Institute of Future Study for Development, which we are totally honored by the Moral Promotion Center, public organization of Thailand in the world, recognized, well-known organization who seek us out. I'm thankful that you have recognized our 40 years effort in helping Thailand and the world. You said it rightly. We are the first foresight organization based on research and innovation, the first in Southeast Asia. We have done many works, and thank you for sourcing us out, looking at us, and create a category where we don't seek, but you seek us out. Thank you very much for honoring us. But what we really want to do is to promote the outcome, not only peace, but it move further to development and move further to nation building. And we create nation building scorecards to try to make the entire nation and the international global countries move forward together in nation building index announced on the first day. And we have done it for many years now to see who do well in nation building. Corruption detection. Today we have the convenience and the powerful tool of AI. Can we do it so that transparency happen? In fact, I said anything that is there have to be in public knowledge through transparency, except you can explain heavily why you have to be confidential. Not the other way around. Everything confidential in the government until you can explain why you have to disclose. But everything should be disclosed at every step, every level, every items, until you can explain why you need to be confidential. If we go through that kind of system, that would be great, transparent. I'm suggesting ethical impact assessment, EIA of the new kind. Today, all the infrastructure projects, they go through HIA, Health Impact Assessment, EIA, Ecological Impact Assessment. I have suggested many more things that actually we need a little bit more. What about ethical impact assessment? Is it right? We need to do annual public moral audit. At the global level, international accountability mechanism. Today, the UN is lame duck. I feel very sorry for those who work for the UN. They feel very, very tiny in their role anymore in the world. War crime monitoring, blockchain-based aid transparency. We move from literacy, we move on to what we call accountability. Now we move on to dialogue, moral dialogue. Habermas's theory of communicative action holds that people can manage differences through dialogue, reason giving, and mutual understanding, which is good. Disagreement is inevitable. No two minds agree in all things, except if one don't think. Therefore, we disagree is normal. But how do we converge the disagreement so that we are more agreeable on more consensus? Polarization deepens when dialogue can help by replacing accusation, outrage, and mutual distrust. Deliberate, what I call deliberative moral dialogue, creates structured spaces for diverse groups to engage under shared norms of respect, reason giving, equal participation. So we transform disagreement naturally into the source that is no longer in confliction, but to learning, innovation, and social cohesion. The moral dialogue that I mentioned, at the individual level, we have to practice active listening instead of active speaking. Have you seen in meeting with people, they haven't even listened. They say, I disagree. They jump into the disagreement mode very quickly. They haven't listened to one another. Active listening, perspective-taking exercise, empathy, conflict resolution skills. At the community level, I suggest in my book, Araya Dialogue, which is a 12-point steps mechanism of how to converge the disagreement on the public conversation. Whether it's a small group, or a large group, a national group, or a global group. When you disagree, how do you dialogue with civility so that we come to some kind of structured civic space and sphere designed to foster constructive dialogue across differences? And I have suggested in my whole book, entire book on it. At the national level, participatory budgeting and policy making, national dialogue platform. Today, we use the media to attack one another. There is no other way out. But there is no dialogue platform nationally on any issue that emerge. And we polemically politicize and partisan in our approach. The global level, can we have track 2 diplomacy instead of track 1 alone? AI mediated diplomacy, Global Moral Commons Council, a permanent institution for managing civilization and moral differences. Can we do that? My fourth and final idea is moral cooperation. Based on collective action theory, Ostrom works, shared challenges can be solved when people create common rules, mutual accountability, and coordinated action. The global challenges cannot be solved by anyone alone or any institution alone, any country alone. We cannot do soloist style, singly, but we must do collectively. Moral, political, ideological divisions undermine cooperation. Let me propose a moral cooperation platforms. Collaborate around shared goals, align action without requiring complete agreement, and focus on what people can do together. The outcome will transform moral diversity into collective action for common good. At the individual level, my suggestion is to join community volunteering. I create an organization called Time Bank Society to ask people to donate 3 hours a month to help volunteering for public good. It has been done for the last 40 years also. I wish in the beginning half of Thailand will join me. I feel so pitiful to myself that I don't even get that near that number. That means they're willing to spend their time walking the shopping mall, browsing through all the bags and all the different things leisurely, but they're not willing even to give their capability for 3 hours a month to help the society. And that organization have inspired many organizations around the world to do likewise. But we ourselves didn't set good example because the Thai people are undisciplined by nature. Maybe they have good wish, but they never discipline themselves to do it. And they never put in their schedule to do it. Well, joining community volunteering is a good thing. Community peace labs, cross-ideology service project to share action before share belief. Act together, even though you still don't agree fully, and think that you can work together. At the National Civic Service Program, I have daringly for the last decades tried to tell my universities which I govern 15 universities thus far in my lifetime, say, why don't we do something new? No one received our degree. After they gone through the curriculum, passed the exam, they got to go to do the practice for 2 years before coming back to get the degree so that they really understand what they're learning. 2 years public service for graduate to foster shared civic identity. No government daringly accept my challenge yet. They said, if you want to do it, you become the government yourself. We are not going to do it. The outrage is going to happen. You're going to force everybody to learn in the practice, not just in the theoretical dimension in the classroom. Practice what you have learned. Go and do it for the public good. I also propose a cross-party policy platforms to build national consensus zones, mission-based governance. Today, everyone agree around the world, carbon neutrality, net zero, healthy aging, poverty reduction. I'm thinking of the theme next year. Should I announce it prematurely? What is the issue that is looming large in my mind next year for our ICNWP? Let me tell you, I'm thinking AI sovereignty and AI safety, which we don't have too many years to cope with before it ran out of hands. We need to think at the national and the global level. Global cooperation compacts, flexible agreements that allow cooperation without requiring consensus on every single issue. You may not realize I'm pushing my Thailand government to be the initiator in the world to create a new bloc, nuclear weapon-free zone bloc, where we're going to talk to all the nuclear powers, which are not that many. Please, if you want to fight one another, we are not joining you. We want to be nuclear weapon-free zone. If you shoot your nuclear, please shoot over our head and don't shoot into all our countries. I want Thailand to have daringly courageous government to go and initiate something and say, let's sign this pact together that we're going to be nuclear weapon-free zone. We're not going to be pushed around by the big power to join both sides. We say we're going to be the nuclear weapon-free zone. And Thailand would be the first one who make a move. And if other countries listening to me and your government willing to move first, feel free to do so. But I'm trying to push my government unwillingly to follow me. So maybe I have to remove the government soon if we don't see the agreement. What we going to do so that we could change the world? My conclusion. After this elaboration, the challenge of our time is not to eliminate differences, but to manage them without violence. The paradigm must be shifting. How do we build a world where people can disagree and still build a future together? Civilizedly, decently. I think 4 pillars for peace. Moral literacy, moral accountability, moral dialogue, and moral cooperation. You know why I think of these pillars of peace? And in my own philosophical tangency, if I may put it that way, I think that peace has 4 dimensions because human order has 4 dimensions. I think along this way. When you were born until you die, you have to face 4 questions. 1, human order. What is a human being? 2, community order. How do you interact with people, other people, big or small. Third, nature order. How do you interact with the matter kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom? And fourth, what is Dharma order, which is the abstract, and the divine order, which is more the concrete? How do you interact with these four orders of life from the beginning to the end? And out of that four order of life, I create my own theory of peace. You like to hear? It starts at Dharma peace or divine peace. People, when they don't have the compass of right and wrong, they don't have divine peace or Dharma peace, they become disoriented. You need to come to that anchor of divine or Dharma peace. The Buddhists like to use the word Dharma, which is more abstract. Other traditions like to use more concrete, beyond, transhuman, where you can know right and wrong. It's not at the human level, because 8 billion people should have 8 billion definition. Therefore, you need supra-human level to be able to come to some agreement of Dharma peace and divine peace, which I'm generous enough to allow the difference, but let's attempt the divine peace and the Dharma peace. But that glue the other three order. The human order is inner peace. And the nature order is nature peace. Have peace with nature. So don't do climate change anymore. Don't cause climate problem anymore. Don't kill all the animals mercilessly anymore. Don't extinct all the species anymore. Be careful with the way you dig up carbon full and then you release it in the air until it's excessive, and it's called greenhouse effect. And also the community peace, which is in a small circle, in a family, and in an international circle, is international conflict. In the national level, when you bring all your ministers out and beat them up, in Nepal, right, recently, they beat up the minister, burn the house of the minister from Nepal. Professor, you've seen that. My goodness. What I'm saying here is not something nebulous, theoretical alone. It can be practical. For my suggestion, therefore, in the four human order, the four order of life order, human order, community order, nature order, and Dharma order, divine order, then you have four kinds of peace: inner peace, community peace, nature peace, and also peace with the divine. When we don't have that, big problem, because it all intertwined. Let me conclude. Again, the paradigm shift is let's learn moral literacy, moral accountability, moral dialogue, and moral cooperation. Let us make Agora Covenant our shared commitment out of this conference 2026. If the world were listening, particularly those who are in power listening, shall we transform differences into understanding, understanding into dialogue, dialogue into cooperation, and cooperation into peace? For peace is not born from the sameness, but from our ability to live and build together despite our differences. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Kriengsak, for your very insightful speech.